Hey, welcome back, everybody. Great to see you. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful start to the week and an amazing into 2024. Yep, it's almost time to flip the calendar, and with it in the forecast, brutal Arctic air and the potential for record cold temperatures and record snow through the month of January as one of the best patterns for winter weather sets up shop here, really starting over the next couple of days, but specifically going into next weekend and beyond, looking at that pattern. And I'll tell you, folks, this is going to be a January that could be remembered for a long time for some folks, that could really pile up the snow and have that thermometer potentially even getting below zero in parts of the country over the next couple of weeks. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. We're actually getting very close to 20,000. We had a huge blow up in subscribers yesterday, so I do appreciate that. Very grateful. You all mean the world to me. And like I said, if you haven't already joined us, definitely consider doing so. Also, go ahead and like the video, share it with somebody you think may need to find this information, as again, this could be dangerous cold. And of course, comment, let me know where you're watching from and what you want to see as we go into January 2025. Alrighty, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into things and start talking weather. Satellite loop on what's currently happening out there. Yeah, it's definitely already kind of picking up a little bit. We've had this big storm system kind of working on through the country over the past day or two. This is the same storm that brought that severe weather outbreak to Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and then even through the Carolinas yesterday morning, where we had down trees all over the place as gusty winds and even a couple of tornadoes worked on through the southern half of the country. But the good news is this storm is now beginning to pull away. Now, that does not mean we're completely done with impact. Still seeing plenty of rain into New England on this Monday, seeing some active weather on the backside here through Michigan. But things are really going to begin to switch focus from that storm to our next piece of energy. And it's starting here that the cold and wintry weather returns. We're going to see some snow into the northern plains and even into the interior Northeast and Great Lakes over the next couple of days with this storm. But it's really the next storm signal behind it about a week or so from now, maybe even a little bit closer to 5 days, that we're going to begin to really kind of get into the nitty gritty and break down for that potential of a major winter storm over parts of the country. Again, really not that far from now, and then another storm signal behind that one we're going to break down. And just talking about those two storms is basically going to take up all of today's video. Now, looking at radar imagery, you can kind of see these two storm systems I talked about. We'll go ahead and start in the east. A big area of rain and heavy rain into New England, kind of this fire hose effect, as we call it. You can kind of see this stream of Atlantic moisture getting pulled up into the Northeast. That could definitely cause some flooding concerns, but we're also seeing some ice potentially here into some of the cold spots left over into Maine and Massachusetts. So if you live up there and your temperature's below freezing and it's raining, obviously, take precautions, as that's going to turn to freezing rain and freeze on contact, which could definitely pile up pretty quickly here because we have plenty of moisture to come. But the good news is I think throughout the day, temperatures will begin to moderate for everybody, and any ice that is currently falling should change over to rain at some point this afternoon. Now, other than that, the heaviest precipitation with this storm now moving up into Canada. We do have some back-end rain and snow here into Michigan and Ohio, even into Erie, Youngstown, back down towards the Pittsburgh and Buffalo area, seeing some of that rain as the storm pulls away. And it's not often that we see rain in the month of December through all of these places. Normally, it's cold enough for good old-fashioned snow. So if you're wondering, well, where's Old Man Winter? Be careful what you wish for, because you're going to feel it big time here as we go into January. And like I mentioned, it all starts with this storm. You can see that rain, that snow back out west. We've got some Rocky Mountain snow from Montana down towards Yellowstone, snow back into portions of Washington and Oregon, and then rain through Nebraska and southern South Dakota. But that will likely change to snow for a lot of those folks here in the near future. Now, taking a look at watches, warnings, advisories, and all that good stuff, definitely an active map. Not quite as active as yesterday in the east. You'll notice things calming down as our storm pulls away. But newly issued wind advisories and even a winter storm watch for the Tug Hill is now in effect, as we could see some lake effect snow and some of those stronger winds as the storm is pulling away. That will definitely be something that we're monitoring Other than that, though, in the east, folks, not really a whole lot. We've got some dense fog here in the gray boxes. That has been something ongoing for quite some time now. But really, the real active weather out west with these winter weather advisories in the purple, winter storm warnings in the pink, that's the current storm working on through. That is bringing that active weather to you folks. Now, let's go ahead and begin our Meteorology in Minutes segment. This is one of my favorite parts of the video, and especially this time of year, whenever we have these fun wintry events to kind of break down, love using our 500 millibar height maps. So let's go ahead and talk about the first storm that is in the forecast, and then we'll kind of break down the next storms after that. So currently, about the time you're watching this, let me back it up even just a little bit. Big spin over portions of the northeast. See all of this kind of divergence aloft, meaning see how these isobars are kind of spreading out as we go up this way. That tells me we're getting plenty of lift at the surface, and that is going to lead to, in fact, already leading to heavy rain coming in off the Atlantic. Really, almost a textbook kind of flooding setup here. So lucky that we're not dealing with it too much, but definitely that fire hose effect, bringing plenty of moisture into New England, and it's been a relatively dry year, so you can probably handle the rain a little bit more than other times. So that's definitely the kind of interesting stuff with the first storm. The second one is still getting its act together. We've got this trough kind of setting up shop here. Not a super strong system yet, but as we move this ahead into time and as this crosses the lower 48, this will begin to strengthen and kind of break off a little bit more into more of a closed low pressure system. This is tomorrow morning, very early in the morning. You can see that upper level feature moving right over the St. Louis area, and with it, it's going to bring a nice little storm system that could bring some gusty winds, some rainfall, and then eventually it moves up into the northeast, where then it can tap into a little bit more cold air. And it's at this point, Tuesday night into Wednesday, that we could see some interior northeast snowfall. And then on the backside, as the storm is pulling away, some of that lake effect moisture is going to begin. As you can see, these kind of wind barbs are going to be moving right off the lake. So we're going to have a pretty good fetch, just meaning the distance that wind travels over a body of water and kind of picks up all the moisture. The bigger the fetch, generally the more impressive that the lake effect precipitation is, whether that's snow or rain. But this case should be pretty much snow, I think, for just about everybody. All right, let's time it out for you. This is the latest high-resolution rapid refresh model. We'll move it through this afternoon. Again, I think the big theme for the Northeast is just clearing throughout the day. This is by this evening, about 6 Eastern, the sun already down at this point. But clear for most of us. Some leftover precipitation up towards Maine is very possible, especially up into Nova Scotia and kind of the Labrador area there. And then seeing some snow on the backside here into Ontario as that low pressure pulls away. But not a big deal outside of what we're seeing now with that one as it pulls away. But as it's also moving, our next storm system begins to kind of take shape on the map here. You'll see some back-end snow through South Dakota into portions of northern Nebraska. This is this evening. Just rain for much of Missouri here into Iowa, as we're still dealing with some of that cold air that warm air left over, rather from this warmer pattern that we've been in. But this storm is going to bring some snow, even there on the backside through Iowa, and then even into northern Missouri potentially. But just some good old-fashioned heavy rain through Illinois, Indiana, potentially even a couple rumbles of thunder and gusty winds tomorrow morning, as this works really right across the Ohio River. And noticing on the northern side and the backside a little bit of snow trying to break out here. Again, this I've been calling this one the kind of pattern changer or the pattern setter or whatever the heck I've been calling. I can't even remember completely now. But the cold air nonetheless is moving in behind this storm, and some of that will catch up to it. That combined with a bit of a deformation band potentially on the backside of this thing is what's going to lead to that change over to some snow potential on the northern end. But if you're on the southern end here through Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, just some good old-fashioned rain and a couple rumbles of thunder. In fact, don't rule out a little bit of hail and some gusty winds Tuesday afternoon as this works on through those regions. And then we get into the evening of Tuesday, moving into the northeast. Once again, heavy rainfall, Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York City, and up into New England, and some snow here on the backside. And if we switch on over to a global model, the GFS, just so you can see this a little bit better at the same time frame, here we go, overnight Tuesday, seeing that snow and that northwest flow snow on the backside beginning to kick up. All rain for the I-95 corridor, scattered showers and even scattered heavy downpours at times during the overnight of Tuesday. And then here's that snow breaking out in the interior in those higher elevations. I should add up through the Adirondacks, higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, And then you can see the northwest flow snow beginning into West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and potentially even as far south as North Carolina out of this as we get into Wednesday morning and afternoon. That's when the lake effect really begins, and you can see the storm becomes a bit colder as it occludes, and more folks change it on over to snow. And then that kind of gets on out of here, and then we'll watch the middle of next week for maybe a little bit of energy that could bring some slight snowfall, but really the next big story will be the next storm system that could produce major winter weather. All right, snow, ice, all that, what's on the way? Well, snow over the next 48 hours, a good little bit here into South Dakota. You'll also notice slightly elevation dependent here. We have some areas kind of in these river valleys that are going to get a little bit less snow, but overall, most folks, I think a good 2 to 4, maybe even 3 to 5 inch snow event there through southern South Dakota, and then more like 1 to 3 inches into northern Nebraska, and then you get towards a dusting to an inch once you get down towards Iowa. So not a big storm for you folks, but potentially another big one on the way. Again, stay tuned here. And that gets us into the Northeast and the Great Lakes, where we're also going to get snow out of this setup. You'll notice the heaviest means on our model from Erie to Buffalo up here towards the Tug Hill, where that lake effect is really going to produce the big snow, and even up into portions of the UP of Michigan, the northern mitten, and then also some northwest flow down here into portions of West Virginia there. So definitely going to get some good snow out of this one, but this is really just an appetizer, folks, as now we're going to kind of switch gears and start talking about storm signal 2. So the one we just talked about, I guess we can call it storm signal 1. It's less of a signal. It's more of just it's happening right now. So actually, you know what? We're going to change it up. We're going to call the next one Storm Signal 1. What's happening now is just happening now. All right, so here we go. I think the best way to tackle this is going to be top down in the atmosphere, and I think that's really the best way to do anything in meteorology. If the ingredients above us don't match the ingredients below us, generally, you know, something's not completely aligning there and needs to be looked into. But this is our 500 millibar height relative vorticity map. This is the same thing I showed you earlier with Meteorology in Minutes, but we're going to look at the GFS, the European, and then we're going to bring it down to the surface, then we'll look at the ensembles, and then we're going to repeat the entire process again with a second storm signal after the one we're about to talk about. So with further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So this is this Wednesday morning on the GFS. Here's our big storm system in the Northeast. As we go through the week, this is going to pull out, and behind it, cold polar air is going to spill southward into the eastern United States. And what that's going to do is set the stage here. And you'll also notice, and I'll quickly, briefly mention this, see these little pieces of energy flying around? These are potential weak little clippers that could produce some snow later this week into the weekend. It's not going to be a big deal, though. And we'll talk about it more when we get into mesoscale range, but just did want to briefly mention that. The next big storm, though, here it comes. This is this coming Saturday morning. At least Saturday in the East Coast. I guess it's Saturday on both coasts, but it's Saturday morning in the East Coast. It's really more like overnight Friday out west at this time. And here comes a big piece of energy into the Pacific Northwest. And what that's going to do, folks, is dive south through the Rockies and eject here on the latest GFS model. You can see that energy by the time we get to next Sunday and Monday right over the central U.S. And remember, we've got cold air still left in the east from the first storm. And what you're getting also is cold air ejecting now on the backside of this storm. And what it does is it takes a very similar track to our current storm system that we're tracking that's going to bring some of that snow to the Northeast. You can see it kind of, takes that track right on through and is, a potential troublemaker. And then another little piece of energy behind it a little bit further south here, kind of into next Tuesday, moving through Oklahoma, Texas, and once again, kind of crossing through some of these same regions. So you'll notice we've got a storm signal, we've got a lot of energy there on the GFS. What about the European model? What is it showing? Well, I'll tell you, it's pretty similar. Starting at the same time, this is next Friday night into Saturday, big piece of energy out into the Pacific Northwest that is going to work through the Rockies and eventually eject into the plains. And you'll notice on the European, does it a bit further south here. We've got a strong storm signal right over Oklahoma, Texas. We've got cold air all to the north here as it's spilling southward and kind of interacting with this piece of energy, and then takes that track right across the the Ohio and Tennessee river valleys by next Monday into Tuesday, and then crosses right through the mid-Atlantic and towards the Northeast here. And then behind it, again, more energy flying around. We'll talk about that in just a second. But what does all this mean? We've got energy, we've got cold air. Well, yeah, generally that's going to mean some sort of winter precipitation, and that's exactly what the models are showing. Here's the GFS. Again, this is this Wednesday afternoon. Storm system in the northeast, but watch the Pacific Northwest. And I will briefly mention again. Here's one of those little clipper systems that we briefly mentioned earlier. And we'll see what that does, but I don't think that's going to be a super big deal by any means. That gets out of here, and here we go. Next weekend, a whole lot of energy into the northern Rockies, a ton of snow falling, low pressure beginning to develop and ejecting out of the plains. And look what is happening here. To the north, you see this high pressure. This is an Arctic high pressure moving down out of Canada. And what it's doing is spilling this very dense, cold Arctic air at the surface southward. And because of that, we're getting winter weather to break out all the way down into Kansas, Missouri, ice, sleet, and snow to the north of that as this storm begins to form. And here we go on the GFS next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, less than a week out now. We've got an all-out ice storm through portions of Missouri, Kentucky, back into Kansas, a winter storm, a snowstorm up north into Iowa, as you've got this very cold block of high pressure kind of really running right with this low pressure system. And the blue line is our 540 line. You see that here in this scenario. That's going to kind of be the rain snow line, but you can be further south than that and be getting ice. You see down here in this area where we're still kind of south of that first blue line that I'll kind of draw here or kind of just highlight. You see this little 540 line? That's generally the rain snow line, and you can kind of see how that aligns perfectly with it here. But to the south where there's ice, yeah, this is very dense Arctic air. So what you're getting is that cold push of air at the surface, but above us, our low-level jet is bringing warm air out of the Gulf, and that warm air over cold air, that's a recipe for a big-time ice storm going into this coming weekend through portions of the plains and portions of the Midwest. And then we get further ahead on the GFS here overnight Sunday into the early morning hours of Monday. This mess works into the Ohio Valley, all out winter storm for Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, up into Wisconsin and Michigan, seeing ice, snow, seeing it all, even portions of North Carolina here. See some of that ice, and then up into Virginia, seeing some winter weather. And then this kind of slides through the mid-Atlantic by next Monday afternoon, and we see more wintry precipitation. And then on the GFS, you get a whole nother little system behind it, and that's kind of storm signal 2 we'll talk about in a moment. So let's go ahead and show you the European as well for this same time frame. We'll move it into this coming weekend. Here comes a storm into the Pacific Northwest. You see all of that energy. You see that wintry precipitation beginning to unfold as temperatures have dropped significantly. And we'll kind of watch this ahead into time, and very similar to the GFS. This is Sunday afternoon, January 5th. About 6 days from now, European, again, showing a major winter storm, strong low pressure, all-out ice storm through portions of Missouri, winter storm with snow to the north of that, as this Arctic boundary is spilling southward and catching up to our low pressure, and the two are interacting. And this would be the first major winter storm for areas in this part of the country this year. Obviously, this year it's the start of 25, but the start of this, winter, we'll say from November on to now, is kind of what I meant there. And same story, tracks right through the Ohio Valley. We've got a major ice storm on the European through Louisville, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, a major snowstorm to the north of there as we get into Monday morning. All out, near blizzard conditions through portions of the northern Ohio Valley there. We've got ice into Virginia, snow into Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and then kind of slides right on through the mid-Atlantic and brings big snow to portions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and even New York City by the time we get about 7, 8, or 9 days out from now. So obviously, that's a lot I showed you. Well, what are the chances this actually produces winter weather? Well, pretty good, I think. These are the ensemble chances of at least an inch of snow falling. And then I'm going to pull up some maps on the fly here that I didn't think to pull up. But here we go. Move this ahead in a time. This is the Wednesday system up into the northeast. A good chance of lake effect, northwest flow, interior snow. But you'll notice out west, our storm begins into the Rockies, a big burst of snow potential into the weekend, and then snow chances the highest here through Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, where we're running a good 30 to 50+% chance of accumulating snowfall. And to the south of there, into this region, you're not seeing a lot on your chance of snow, but your ice potential would be higher. And it's all going to come down to the track of this storm. The further north all the winter precipitation is. The further south the storm is, the further south all the winter precipitation is. But you folks here into the Ozarks, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, just, don't look at this and assume we're in the clear on the first storm. I think icing potential is going to be a very real concern out of this one. And then those snow chances move into the Northeast. A good chance for snow from Philadelphia, New York, into New York City, even up into New York State, and then down towards Jersey. A good shot of snow with this first system, and then the second system arrives, and that'll be the next talking point. Same map on the European. Look at this big burst of snow potential further south on the European ensembles. You see this big block of snow chances from Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and then even seeing some of those chances dip down into Tennessee, the foothills of North Carolina, even the foothills of South Carolina, running, a good 10, 20, 30% chance of some sort of winter precipitation falling. So just definitely a further south mean on the European ensembles, and a nice signal there into Philadelphia, New Jersey, and into portions of the Northeast as we get about 7, 8, 9 days from now out of that storm system. All right, so I'm also going to pull up this. This is the total freezing rain QPF mean on the European, which I'm going to do this on the fly here because, like I said, ice is going to be a concern here too. And watch this burst of icing potential right into here. Folks, that is a serious ice signal from Missouri into Illinois, Indiana, northern Kentucky. This would cause major travel disruptions late next weekend and into early next week. We're talking a mean already of 1/4 of an inch of ice right into this region. So unfortunately, this is not going to be a pretty storm. This is not going to be one with pretty fat snow or rain. We're going to have a feisty battleground zone between where that Arctic air and that Gulf air are overlapping, and we're going to have a major ice storm somewhere. Now, this shield of ice, it could slide south a little bit. It could slide north a little bit. Same thing for the snow map. But just know, it's still a week away, time to figure it out. But somebody's going to get clobbered with a winter storm late next weekend into early next week. And that's problem number one. Problem number two is this. The cold's not going to leave after that. That's just the start of this pattern. This is temperatures starting this week. This is Wednesday into Thursday. Notice that first little shot of chilly air in the east. That's going to set the stage for all of this ice and snow potential. But behind that storm system, this is next weekend. This is next Saturday, the next Sunday below. And by next Monday and Tuesday, this is right after the storm I just showed you. Folks, we get locked in the freezer. A blast of Arctic air. The ensemble mean already 10 to 20 degrees below average on this map with the European. And spoiler alert, we move this ahead and ahead and ahead. It's not going anywhere through the first half of January, well below average temperatures into the eastern part of the country. So it's going to be a big deal in January. No other way to put it. This could be dangerous levels of cold, dangerous travel impacts with snow and ice. And I know we love the snow. Trust me, I love the snow too. But this is getting towards a level of worrisome for some folks. So if you have elderly neighbors, if you know somebody who, lives somewhere that they don't have heat or something like that, go ahead, start talking to them now. Kind of come up with some sort of plan that you two can, or you three, or however many there are of you, work together to kind of get through this weather pattern. Because I don't want to compare it to other times, but if you remember 2021 down in Texas, this could be that for somebody else. I'm not saying it's going to be to that extent, but we're going to have long-lasting cold air and winter storm chances through probably some of the same regions. And when I say same regions, I don't necessarily mean into the heart of Texas, but I mean somebody on the map here. It could be Missouri, it could be Kentucky, it could be Alabama, Texas, it could be the Carolinas. Somebody's going to get clobbered with a lot of cold and a lot of winter weather. So I know that's a lot of information I just threw at you there, but it is important. All right, that's storm signal 1. We got snow, we got ice, we got cold. Then there's storm signal 2, and this is the one that gets even more interesting. The first storm, I think the best chance of winter weather is going to be right into here through Ohio, back through Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, and then into potentially Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, northbound into New Jersey. The second storm system, that's when we're going to shift the chances a bit further south and up the coast for more of a Miller A type system. The first one closer to a Miller B, it kind of forms here, moves east, and then potentially phases off the coast. The second storm signal, which is still a ton of question marks about, but this one has potential for southern snow. All right, so let me show it to you. European energy map here. Here's the storm. This is Monday, Tuesday, a whole lot of energy that kind of works on through. That's the one we just talked about. And then we've got just this band of energy. See kind of this skinny ribbon here, and then kind of more pronounced energy back towards the south and west, towards Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. This is what's going to have the potential to produce some sort of winter weather. And this right here, folks, this is just mega cold air. This is Arctic air, borderline polar vortex piece of energy diving southward. And if that links up with any energy down here and they kind of combine, that's going to lead to some sort of winter storm for somebody in the south and potentially up the east coast. And you can see that happens here kind of on the European. See how these two link up into one by about the 10th of January. And we've just got this major block of cold air and likely some sort of storm riding up the coast. Well, that's exactly what the European is showing in the energy map. Now, sometimes that doesn't completely correlate to the surface, but if we take a look at the GFS run from this morning, I think doing a good job of showing this overall pattern. And it's a pattern where the first storm moves through, that brings the boom with snow and ice, and then the cold air settles in. And as that cold air is settling in, we're going to have the chance for an overrunning event. Now, the GFS gets energy even sooner. This is about the 7th or 8th of January, so next Tuesday, Wednesday, just after the first storm. This is truly Arctic air, folks. This is just a block of absolutely frigid air working south, and with that, firing up some low pressure down here along a favorable zone near the Gulf of Mexico, where we have baroclinic instability, just meaning warm air and cold air are already fighting it out normally. You add some sort of lift over that, and you're going to start to spin things up. And that's what happens here on the GFS. You get a little overrunning event there into the mid-Atlantic, and then you get a bigger overrunning event later on. Here we go. You see another little storm trying to form around day 10, the 8th and 9th, more energy. And then the GFS finally links up a big piece of energy, and you get a major winter storm right around the 10th of January through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, rides right up the coast. And I mean, put this one in the Hall of Fame. If you're a winter weather fan in the United States in the East, go ahead, look at this picture, take a picture of it, go buy a frame, put it on the wall, and kiss it and hug it goodnight, because this is about as good as it gets. Now, obviously, the problem with this is right up here in the top, 282 hours out. So this exact scenario is unlikely to play out, but it shows what I want you to take home. And that is around the 10th of January, there's going to be a signal here for some sort of major winter storm to start, I think, down here in the Gulf somewhere and try to ride up the coast. This run of the GFS, I mean, just goes bonkers with what would be an absolutely record-breaking snowstorm, record-breaking cold behind it. And I do think this is going to be a lock-in. I think you see all this cold air, yeah, that's going to come. That's going to be a problem right around the 10th of January. The question is, do we get this major storm with it? And that's where all the question marks lie. And that's what we're going to have to figure out over the next couple of days and really over the next week or so. Again, we're still figuring out the first storm signal, the second storm signal. That's a whole nother thing to kind of worry about. All right, so in this range, let's not focus so much on that crazy run I just showed you. Let's look at the ensembles, and here's the European ensembles. Here's storm signal 1 we talked about, a good chance of snow out of that one. And then here we are. This is into the 8th, the 9th, and into the 10th. Notice a big blossom of snow chances as far south as Texas, into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, into the Carolinas. I mean, folks, this is beautiful. This makes you want to get on your knees and thank God, because it doesn't get much better than this if you're a snow lover. Now, obviously, again, like I said, we're going to have to worry about the cold, and this isn't going to be all sunshine and rainbows for winter weather fans. There are going to be actual dangerous impacts, but if you want to see snow in the deep south, this is the best shot in arguably years, going towards the 8th through the 11th of January. I would say that time frame, and then potentially even after that, the pattern could hang on. But notice snow chances increasing way down south and then up into the mid-Atlantic and through the Northeast in that time frame. On the European ensembles, GFS ensembles, brand new right off the press here this morning. Storm signal 1 that we talked about, and then here comes storm signal 2. Not a big one, at least not as big as the European, but notice snow chances in the Carolinas, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and kind of hanging around there for a little bit, just less of a defined signal on the GFS. I think the GFS is kind of fighting different pieces of energy with each other. The European, a lot more confident with, yeah, here's the piece of energy, here's when it's coming, right around the 8th, the 9th, the 10th of January. Alrighty, and then here's the actual problem, folks. Obviously, we love snow, but whenever it stays cold after the snow, that's the problem. So this is that snow signal right around the 7th, 8th, 9th. You notice all this cold air. That's what the first storm brought. It already brought a shot of Arctic air. Then this second storm potential could bring the real Arctic air. And notice how cold it gets on the ensembles. This is around the 11th of January after both snow potentials. I mean, the ensembles to have a mean of about not negative 26 in terms of that's what the temperature will be, but 20, 30 degrees below what we should be this time of year on the ensembles at 300 hours out. You just don't see that often, folks, which is why we're so confident this cold air is coming in January. And the European ensemble hangs it on and it moderates it slightly, but hangs it on through at least the middle of the month. Alrighty, folks, again, a lot on the way here, a lot to talk about. I'll mention it again, though. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so because the roller coaster is coming and you're going to want to stay up to date. And also hit that bell for the latest notifications so you get the latest model runs and a breakdown of that guidance. Alrighty, folks, y'all have a great one. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all next time.